Welcome to the doghouse. This is going to just be a simple deal I'm going to do today. And this is be yourself. Simple as can be. Just go out, be yourself, do what you think is right. Don't try to be somebody you are not. Because when you go out, you try to be somebody you're not, you'll get disappointed in that and you probably go down a road that you do not want to follow. Yes, all of us have a tendency to want to do that, but we have to correct ourselves. We don't need to go out and be someone we're not. Just be yourself. Be who you are and go forward in life. You don't need to be some famous person. You just have to be you. Yes, being yourself comes with a few responsibilities in life. One is if you're going down the wrong path, and you know if you keep going down, you will not be yourself. You may be doing things wrong in your life, but you have to correct it. Being yourself is realizing you have to correct it before it goes too far. Anybody that says they haven't tried to go down the wrong path just a little bit at times is probably lying to you. But when you're being yourself, you will catch it and get back to where you know you're supposed to be. Too many people in our lives try to be somebody they are not. Because, like I said, if you're try to be somebody you're really not, you will become disappointed and angry at yourself. And you'll probably never go back to being who you really are. Being yourself is very important. We should never take being ourselves for granted. You know, being yourself means being yourself. Me, if I want to shave, I'll shave. If I don't, I don't. If I want to get on here, I get on here. If I don't, I don't. That's me being myself. I'm a very different person. I go at things a whole lot different than a lot of people do on here or even in life. And I always have. I will go approach something at a different angle or whatever. That is because I am being myself. Yeah, I appreciate people realizing that. And they have, and that's all well and fine. That's showing the world who I really am. I'm being myself. I can be funny and get to a point. I can be serious and get to the point, and I do both. No, I ain't this great, wonderful person out there that everybody wants to be like. That's a bunch of crap because that isn't now nor in the future. I'm just being myself on what I do. People recognize that, and I take it as a badge of honor. They realize that I'm trying to be myself. Do I screw up and do dumb, idiotic things in my life? Oh, big time. But I correct him and go back to being who I know I am. I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm not ashamed of what I do. That's because I am being myself. When there comes a problem, I correct it. I have to correct my own problems before I can even associate trying to do that to somebody else. Being yourself is so important because people don't realize it. When you're being yourself, you will not do a lot of things that are bad. When you are yourself, being yourself, you know the path you need to follow and how to follow it. You can ask for guidance, which we all need to do, and I do. But when you're yourself, you make less mistakes than if you're trying to be somebody you're not. When you're trying to be somebody you're not, you become the problem, not the solution. How many of you seen people out there that are afraid to be themselves? I think every one of us has run into people like that, and we will until the day we die, because there's just people out there that are like that. You can't change them, but you can direct you to what you do. You know, I knew a guy, grew up with him. He was an interesting guy, very, very smart. But he had a problem not believing in himself. He wasn't doing it on purpose, but that was the result. He could have a great idea, and he would talk himself out of that idea. Well, his idea he had at first would be right. He would be so correct on that idea or statement, but he would talk himself out of it in the end and not do what was right. That's because he wasn't being himself. He let that other person within him dictate to him the wrong way. When you're not yourself, when you don't be yourself, being yourself's really, really important, because when you're not yourself, you'll start hating, and hating within. You'll come so bad off in what you are doing, you will not realize until it's too late that you have become a hateful person because you weren't being yourself. You turned into somebody you're not. And all of us, all our lives, like I said, have seen people like this. When you're not yourself, you may question what is right in life. When you're not yourself, you'll forget what you should be doing. But don't be somebody you're not. You know, correct if it's wrong, but don't be somebody you're not. Because when you are yourself, you really do correct yourself a lot of times. You're able to see what is wrong and what direction you need to go. We don't need to question everything we do. We just have to know if it's not right, we will correct it. That is being yourself. Being yourself is not blaming others for your actions. You're responsible for your actions and you do it. When you are being yourself, you will realize this. Don't be somebody you're not. Don't go out in the world and say, I get to be this person, when you know deep down inside you're not and you never will be. So we got to get back to the basics of knowing who we are and why we are. And everybody has their own opinion on why we are. And that's all well and fine. It takes all sorts to make the world go around. We need to be ourselves just so we don't question ourselves all the time. Now, questioning yourself once in a while is good, because when you question yourself, you'll figure out what you're doing right and wrong. But overall, being yourself and not being somebody else is what you need to do. Sometimes question yourself because you are yourself. You'll figure out what's the right way and the wrong way. Every one of us has faults in this life. Every one of us screws up in this life. But if we're not ourselves, we won't catch on to what we are doing, and we will go in the wrong direction. A lot of times marriages are broken up because people were not being themselves. They weren't honest with themselves. They were trying to be somebody they were not, and it didn't work. Now, I've been married since 1986, and I'll be 66 next month. But when you are yourself, you realize certain things in life and you go and do it. I knew before I got married it just wasn't for me, and the only way I could have been in a relationship as far as marriage, I went out all the time, and I'm ugly, so, but it wasn't right time for me. I couldn't be myself and get married or be in a serious relationship before that. One, I wasn't ready. Two, if I would have jumped in, I would not have been being myself. I would have tried to be somebody I wasn't. I met some great people, ladies in my life that I admire, but if I would have ever got involved with them and wound up marrying them, I would not have been being myself. It was trying to be somebody I wasn't. All of us fall in that category, not necessarily when it comes to marriage, but even a relationship. We'll see somebody out there and we'll say, we got to be like that person. And you're willing to change yourself for the not the good. You're not bettering yourself by doing that. You want to go out there and be somebody you're not, and sooner or later that will catch up with you in a relationship. Whether it's before or after you're married, it don't matter. That will catch up with you regardless of what you do. So if you're yourself, chances are you'll be married for a long time or in a relationship with somebody for a long time. When you're not yourself and you get in a relationship, it becomes a matter of convenience for you. And it's not who you are or what you should be. When you get in a relationship and it's all about something you got in your mind, you had to do it. You weren't being yourself or honest with yourself to start with. Because now it's just there, that other person, for convenience. And I've seen this. I got relatives that have done this. But they turned into somebody they weren't because they wanted that convenience. And they were willing to give up who they were, maybe not outright saying it, but in their mind, they were willing to give up who they are for something they were not. And that convenience and that just, how do I put this? Just there because they're there, you give up who you were to do this. Sometimes in relationships you have to change a few things, but you cannot give up who you are. Don't be that person in a relationship that goes out and is willing to just satisfy everybody and be somebody you are not. Don't get involved with it. If you cannot be who you are, don't go down that road. I've been married one time since 1986. And that's the way we were. We wanted to be together. I was able to be who I was. My wife was able to be who she is. We did not compromise on ourselves. We were being ourselves. We weren't compromising on being somebody else. And it works. You always have, I'm going to keep repeating it, you always have to be yourself. Don't be somebody you're not. When you try to be somebody you're not, you'll turn yourself into one of the most miserable people and irritable people there ever was. Because you're trying to satisfy something that's really not there. You're trying to compromise who you are for something that don't exist. When you do that, friends, family, and relationships will all see that, because you're not being who you are. You're being a phony up front. But you know what? Being that phony up front, you're not being who you really are. That's on you. You're lying to yourself. You're not lying to anybody else. Well, you could be, but the main thing is you're lying to you. If you're yourself and you are being yourself, and that won't happen. If it does, you will correct it and go down the right path. Being yourself is so much important. Some of this is repeating, I know it, but is so important in life from day we are born until we die. We all have to live with the fact that we have to grow every day. We do change here and there when we need to, but you're still being yourself. You're not coming to the point of misery. You know, going down a path that's not yourself will demise you physically and mentally. Not being yourself will get on your mind and in your mind so bad. When you're not yourself, your mental aspects will be eroded because you don't want to be yourself for whatever reason. Some people don't want to be themselves because they hate themselves. In reality, that's not what it is. You always have to be yourself. Sometimes we get mad at ourselves and disgusted with ourselves. And a good part of that is we're not being who we are. We're trying to be somebody we're not, and it won't work. And this goes beyond money. You could have no money in your pocket in debt, or you could have millions of dollars with no rhyme or reason to be in money problems. It don't matter. If you're not being yourself, money's not going to solve that problem. Money will never solve that problem. You think sometimes money will buy you happiness. You have to change who you are. That's not being happy. That's finding a new way to be miserable. When you're yourself, you go out and do things for yourself. And if that's $1,000,000 you got in your pocket, I know that's just speaking. Nobody would have $1,000,000 in their pocket. But if you had $1,000,000 in your pocket, you were being yourself and you were being honest to yourself, you would be a very happy person. If you had that $1,000,000 and you weren't being yourself, you were being dishonest with yourself, your heart still would be hating what is going on. We think all these worldly things will help us out. They don't. You can't give up things and not, you have to be yourself. You can have all these worldly things in the world and you know it's wrong and you're willing to give up who you are to get these things. Then when this does not happen, or even if it does happen, you will start to hate yourself because you forgot who you are and how you reacted when who you are. Your philosophy has changed for the worst, not the better, because you're not acting like who you really are. Don't be somebody you are not. Be that person you know you are. Don't go down that road where you're trying to compromise who you are for whatever reason. Whether it's a girlfriend, a wife, or whatever it may be, or money. If you go down the road of not being yourself, you will hurt so many people on the path to your own misery. Because that's really what it is. If you're not who you are, if you don't be yourself, you will go down that road of misery. That money won't help you. That not money won't help you. It don't matter. Being miserable and being who you are is not necessarily has to be the same thing. When you are who you are and you are being yourself, you may not have the money, but you have the heart and dignity to do the right thing and go down that path. That money isn't going to dictate you to do the right thing. You may even use that money to go after others that do not have that money, because your heart has been distorted somehow because you're not being who you really are. When you go down that path of trying to be somebody who you're not, you are not only hurting yourself, which is the biggest thing, you will hurt others around you, because you will get to the fact that you just don't like people. And it isn't because you don't like people in reality. It's because of the road you went down. You forgot who you are, and you forgot to be yourself. Never be somebody you're not. It can change your life so fast. I like observing people. I may not say nothing to them or anything else. I may just sit and watch them, but I love observing people. And that's one thing you can see in a lot of people, is you can tell those that are themselves and are being themselves, and those that are not, that it's trying to be something else for one reason or other. I got a friend, and he is my friend. If he thinks he can't get something by being himself, he actually goes out and tries to be somebody he's not. Whether it's a girlfriend or if we're with a bunch of people that he won't say what he really means. He will go along with them because it's easier and he might get something out of it by agreeing with them. He has a tendency to do this. That means he's really not who he's telling people are. He forgets who he is, and he forgets how to react to people, because he is willing to give up who he is to be part of the crowd. And he's willing to give up who he is to gain something. And sometimes nobody knows what he's gaining, but in his mind, there is something there. Never be somebody you are not. I mean, I got a little sister the same way. She'll do 100 things, but not be who she is. If she thinks she can come up with something, and I love her to death, don't get me wrong, but she is willing to give up who she is for something she is not. Got a brother, same way. Now, I got a lot of brothers and sisters, by the way. Mom had 10 of us all together, and I'm number 9. Dad had 2 before that, so I'm number 11 for him. And some of my nieces and nephews have done the same thing. Most of them don't. 99% of them don't do this because of the way we was raised and taught. But there's always them that'll do it anyway. But when you decide you're not going to be who you really are and try to change yourself into somebody you are not, you're willing to sacrifice people around you, family members, your wife, your girlfriend, or whoever it may be, for your own personal gains. And that is sad. I'll admit, I've gone down that road, but I've caught myself to get back to who I am. And what I do on here, like right now, I'm doing it because I want to. I'm not forced to. I'm not making any money off of this. I don't even get that many view hours. Get a lot of views on my shorts, but I'm out doing what I want and how I want. I'm not hurting anybody, and I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm who I am, and I'm not going to change who I am. Unless I'm doing something wrong, then yeah, I'll adjust and change in that respect. But I'm not out here trying to be somebody I am not. I just can't do that. So some people like me, some ignore me, some is okay with me, and I'm the same way with others. But I refuse to be somebody I am not. Life is so much easier when you don't try to be a person you are not. Life is a lot easier on us overall if we get that attitude out of our minds that we have to be somebody we're not. Be who you are. Don't be ashamed of who you are. Remember, it's up to you. It is not up to any individuals. If you try to be somebody you are not and go down that path, you cannot blame anybody but yourself. There may have been forces pulling you that way, but in the end, it was your choice. And you have to own up to it. Matter of fact, if you go way down it or a little bit down that path, if you're not willing to recognize that it was your fault you went that way or was suckered into going that way, you'll keep going down that way. You won't even correct yourself. Be who you are, not somebody else. Just because you may have a friend that's this great friend, you don't have to be like him. You have to be like yourself. And I see so many people out there that thinks they have to, even friends, thinks they have to be somebody they are not, because if they're not, they won't be liked. Guess what? I'm who I am. I'm going to do it my way. If people like me, they like me. If they don't, they don't. It's up to them. But I guarantee you one thing. I'm going to be who I am. I'm not going to be a phony going out and trying to be somebody I am not. If I was a phony on here, I'd start doing a whole bunch of negative things and go out and make sure all these people know who I am, and I could lie and I can do this and that, and I can get money, I can get more views, I can get more hours by doing this. Screw that. I'm not doing that. I'm who I am, and I'm going to be who I am. I'm not going down the path to satisfy others that's gone down the path who don't believe in themselves. Always be yourself, not somebody else. Don't go into the path that you have to be somebody else. Don't do that. Go forward on who you really are. Show the world who you really are. You don't need to go down that path and not being who you are. Because other things that happens when you go down that path, you know that's not who you really are, is you walk over so many people, you don't even realize the amount of people you will walk over when you try to be somebody you're not. You won't realize it and see it until it's too late. It's just the way it is. I'm not making things up here, but if you're not going to be who you really are, this will happen. Even if you're even if you live your life of who you are, and you're not going to try to be somebody you're not, you still have to correct what you do is wrong, because none of us is perfect. But we just have to make sure we don't go all the way down that road. Be who you are, not somebody else. Be able to correct yourself and change where you need to change, because you are yourself. When you go down that other road, you will make excuses why you're the way you are and why you changed from the way you were. You will have all kinds of excuses. But it comes down to you decided you were not going to be who you really were. Be yourself. Don't be somebody else. And that's one thing. Even in school, I seen it. People, and granted, we were growing up and we were trying to figure things out in life. But still, even there, kids were willing to be somebody they're not to please others. I guarantee you this, and I wasn't this famous guy in school. It was a really small high school, junior high. I wasn't bullied or anything like that. I wasn't Mr. Popular, but most people like me. There's always some that wouldn't, but most people like me because I was being myself. Like I said, I wasn't Mr. Popular, but the only way I knew how to live life was to be myself. I can't go down even then, I couldn't go down the path of being somebody I wasn't so somebody would like me. And my attitude, even in going back to junior high, is either like me or not, and I'm going on with life, and I'm going to do what I know is right for me. And I really did do that. That isn't a bunch of crap I'm putting out there. That is exactly how I was. I think that's why I got along with most people. Like I said, I wasn't Mr. Popular, but I wasn't bullied. I was there doing what I did. You know, I wasn't one extreme to the other. I didn't bully people. They didn't bully me because that wasn't who I was. Because in order for me to bully somebody, I would have had to turn into somebody I wasn't. I would not be myself if I would have did that. If I was out there trying to be the Mr. Popular and be the school's popular person, I would also have not been who I am. I would have had to give up who I was to do that. And I wouldn't do that either. Because I'm not about to be somebody I am not. Because I'm going to be myself. So at all cost, always be yourself. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Be yourself. Go out, do the right thing, and keep doing the right thing. This may seem like I'm preaching, but I'm really not. This is just how I live my life and why. There's great people out there, and I've met a whole bunch on here that I really like, but I did it by being myself, not somebody else. Oh, if I didn't want to be myself, I could probably get more people easy, but I'm not doing that. I refuse to do that. I'm going to be who I am at all times. I'm going to be myself and not somebody else. When you try to be somebody else, that means you're going to try to walk in their shoes, and you can't. You can walk in your own shoes, but not theirs. Try and be like somebody else and not like who you are. You're going down a path that's not that great. You may think this person's this great guy and he does all this stuff. He does wonderful things. And you're going to be just like him. Is that who you really are? Or is that being somebody you are not? That don't mean you don't like him. Don't get me wrong. I got friends that are 100% different than I am. I'm just not going down that path that they do to be who they are. I got to go down the path that I know is right for me. I'm going to be who I am. Don't be somebody you're not. Be who you are. Go that extra mile if you have to. Correct things that are wrong to make sure you go down that path. Always, always be who you are. I'm not, and we have to adjust. Don't get me wrong. Some things in life, like if I would have had the money growing up and when I got out of school, I 100% guarantee you I would have been a cattle rancher. I'd have had my own ranch, my own cattle, the whole bit. But financially, it wasn't there. There was no money to do that, or I would have did that. But I was still myself. I had to adjust a little, obviously. But I adjusted with and still been myself. Whether I'm doing what I do, well, I'm retired now, but when I was working, it, I was the same person as if I would have had the money and had that ranch. I would have had more responsibilities. And no, I was never offered a ranch because we're not rich people here. My family is not rich at all. My dad worked on ranches as a hired hand. But if I would have had the money, that's what I'd been doing. But seeing I didn't have the money, I didn't have to change who I was to go to the next step where I needed to go. I was always who I am. I didn't try to be somebody I was not. Even though it would have been fun to have a ranch in my eyes, but that wasn't for me, obviously, even though I wanted it. But that didn't make me mad. That didn't change my attitude of who I was. See, just because things don't go the way you'd like them to go, I'm very happy with who I am. But I didn't change who I was because I didn't get an opportunity to do something I would have loved to have done. I am glad who I am. I'm glad what I've done in life. I'm glad the people out there, the same thing that has gone out there, did their work and does their work and is who they are by not being somebody they are not. Always go out, be who you are. Don't be somebody you're not. Don't try to be that other person. Try to be you. Always try to be you. Trying to be somebody you are not is just the wrong way to go in life. Trying to be hook onto somebody's coattails to be like them is not the right way to do things either. When you sacrifice who you are to be somebody who you are not, is usually when trouble will start. Trouble will follow you through and through when you do this. Because God put you here because of who you are and what you can do, and we can grow. Growing and adapting to things that are wrong is not being who you're not are. Let me rephrase that. Doing the stuff you know you need to be done, you can still be who you are. You don't have to give up that at all. It's when you go out and do things you know you're doing and it's not who you really are. Because that does get you in a bad spot. Because so many people go down that road, even though they knew who they were and doing what they were doing, they decide to go down the other road and they just can't get back anymore. They are doing things who they are not. They have turned into that other person. They didn't start out that way when they were who they were and doing things they knew they needed to do. They were 100% okay. But when they went down that road of not being who they are, that's when the trouble starts. Always be who you are. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't be ashamed of who you are. Stand up for who you are. Go forward in life about who you are. Don't give that white flag up if it takes a little extra. And what I mean by that, because you're being who you are, you're going to have a lot of troubles in your life, but you can overcome them and not change who you are. Who you are will define your whole life. Why do you want to change it and be somebody you weren't? Go through life being who you are. Stand up for who you are. Show the world who you are. Because when you are who you are, you will accomplish more in life than anybody else. Regardless of how much money you have in your pocket, when you are who you are, you will stand above others. Thanks.